In 1985, crime journalist Nicholas Pileggi released Wise Guy, a gritty, unflinching chronicle of real-life mobster Henry Hill. It was explosive, detailed, and terrifyingly personal, but it almost never became a movie. Not because Hollywood wasn't interested, but because the one director born to make it wanted nothing to do with it. Martin Scorsese didn't even open the book when his agent sent it. He'd already made Mean Streets. He'd already made Raging Bull. He was ready to move beyond crime. "I was done with mob films," he would later admit. "I didn't want to get stuck." The book sat unread for months. Then fate intervened. A major studio project Scorsese was attached to collapsed. He was at a professional low point. One night, in the middle of an emotional and creative crisis, he picked up Wise Guy. By the time he finished the first few chapters, he was shaking. At 2 a.m., he called Pileggi directly. Scorsese simply said, "I've been waiting for this book my whole life." Pileggi replied without missing a beat, "I've been waiting for your call my whole life." It was cinematic destiny. But Hollywood didn't see it that way. Every major studio passed. Too violent, too morally ambiguous, too real. No heroes, no redemption arc, no moral clarity, producer Irwin Winkler recalled. The studios didn't know how to sell it. But that was the entire point. Goodfellas wasn't meant to comfort anyone. It was meant to expose something raw and untamed. Warner Bros. Finally took a chance, but even then, the legal team constantly threatened to pull the plug. They were terrified. The film was based on real criminals. Some were still alive, others were in witness protection. Names had to be changed, timelines blurred, characters combined. Henry Hill himself was legally banned from visiting the set, but that didn't stop him. He showed up anyway, more than once, disguised, sometimes unannounced. He couldn't resist seeing his life play out, Pileggi said, even if it put him and the production in danger. Ray Liotta was never the studio's first pick to play Henry Hill. In fact, he wasn't even on their list. They wanted Tom Cruise. They wanted Alec Baldwin, established, bankable stars. But Liotta believed he was Henry. He tracked down Scorsese at events, restaurants, and even cornered him at the Venice Film Festival. He was persistent to the point of obsession. "I almost got myself arrested," he later joked. "But I knew in my gut this was my role." Scorsese finally agreed. There was something in Ray's eyes, intelligence, charm, danger, all hidden behind that smile. The studio only relented because De Niro was already on board, and Joe Pesci too, whose involvement gave the film a raw unpredictability even Scorsese couldn't fully control. De Niro went deep into method acting. He contacted the real-life Jimmy Burke, the man he was portraying, while Burke was serving time in federal prison. Once prison guards realized who he was talking to, they cut the line immediately. It was a federal crime. But De Niro didn't care. He wanted details. How Jimmy held a glass, counted money, smiled when he was lying. He wanted to know the rituals. Lorraine Bracco was cast as Karen Hill, Henry's wife, but her role wasn't written as a typical mob wife. She refused to be just the woman behind the man. She insisted on complexity, on contradiction. Karen was seduced by power, not a victim of it. And she wasn't the only one pushing for truth over tradition. Every actor brought something dangerous to the table. A kind of deep commitment that went far beyond the page. The most iconic scene in Goodfellas, "Funny how? Funny like I'm a clown? I amuse you?" was not in the script. It came from Joe Pesci's real life. As a young man working in a restaurant, he once told a mobster he was funny. The air changed instantly. The man didn't take it as a compliment. Scorsese heard the story during rehearsals. "That's it," he said. "That's the scene." But he didn't tell the other actors. He wanted real reactions. Ray Liotta's nervous laughter, not acting. The looks of discomfort from the others at the table, completely real. Scorsese would whisper one set of instructions to Pesci and a completely different one to Liotta. Contradictions created friction, and friction created cinematic magic. The technique was used across the film. The pistol whipping scene was supposed to be tightly choreographed, but Joe Pesci asked, "Can I just go with it?" The result was a one-take explosion of violence that shocked everyone on set. Ray Liotta's stunned reaction? Genuine. These choices made continuity a nightmare. Dialogue shifted with every take. Emotional tones changed. Script supervisor Dina Allen described it as trying to document a hurricane. The Layla montage, where bodies are found in cars, freezers, dumpsters, wasn't planned. It was born in the editing room. The idea to show the aftermath all at once came from a late-night brainstorm between Scorsese and editor Thelma Schoonmaker. And then there was Henry's final day, a non-stop cocaine-fueled descent into paranoia. The tracking shot? Not planned. The voiceover shifts? Improvised. Ray Liotta stayed awake for days, not on drugs but intentionally sleep-deprived to channel Henry's unraveling. I was hallucinating between takes, he said. It wasn't acting anymore. It was real. Mobsters didn't just inspire Goodfellas, they visited the set, sometimes uninvited. They stood behind the cameras, sat in the corners, observed scenes, and occasionally made suggestions. You'd be doing a scene, assistant director Joseph Reedy said, and someone who definitely wasn't in the crew would tell you, that's not how Jimmy counted money. Then disappear. Ray Liotta recalled a man approaching him between takes. Henry twitched with his left hand. Not the right, the man said. How do you know? Ray asked. I did business with him, the man replied. Then he vanished. Bracco was approached in Little Italy while researching Karen Hill. A woman gave her detailed feedback on how Karen wore her jewelry, how she walked. Later, I found out that woman actually knew Karen, personally. Costume designer Richard Bruno described men showing up to adjust pinky rings, watches, necktie knots. One man said nothing during his visit, until he saw a rack of suits. He pointed to one and said, Jimmy wouldn't wear that color. They changed it immediately. The production walked a fine line between research and complicity. People who were never officially hired somehow knew the shooting schedule, showed up, gave input, and sometimes that input bordered on confession. They'd see us recreate a murder, Scorsese recalled, and casually say, that's not how it really happened. Something not in the book, not in the court records, something only a participant would know. It was terrifying. The iconic Copacabana tracking shot, an unbroken 3-minute journey from street to table, is often praised for its beauty, but behind that beauty was a logistical nightmare. Rehearsals lasted an entire day. They tried 15 takes. None worked. The Steadicam operator was drenched in sweat, navigating narrow spaces, dancers, waiters, doorways. They marked every footstep, choreographed each movement like a ballet. One mistake ruined the shot. But when it worked, it redefined cinematic language. The scene wasn't meant to impress, it was meant to immerse, to show Henry's power, the way the world opened for him. Then there was the helicopter paranoia sequence, another landmark. They shot it from hundreds of angles. Close-ups, mirrors, rotors, windshield reflections. The editing rhythm matched Henry's rising anxiety. Cuts got faster, sound got jagged, voices overlapped. Sometimes you heard dialogue before the scene began, like Henry's brain was racing ahead. Music became narrative. Each song was chosen precisely. The Atlantis scene, when Tommy kills Billy Bats, was timed to the music's crescendo. Scorsese even adjusted footage speed to match specific beats. No one had done that before. The film's freeze-frame technique came from a simple question. What does adrenaline do to your perception of time? Scorsese's answer? It freezes the image. These innovations weren't gimmicks. They were tools for psychological storytelling, and they became the blueprint for modern filmmaking. Ray Liotta didn't play Henry Hill with guilt or redemption. He didn't ask for sympathy. He became a man who didn't see himself as a criminal, just someone telling his story. Joe Pesci's Tommy DeVito? Pure chaos. He practiced flipping emotional states in mirrors between takes. Laughing 1 second, murderous rage the next. Other actors never knew what to expect, and that unpredictability electrified the screen. De Niro's Jimmy Conway was a masterclass in stillness. Power without volume. Micro-expressions. Every movement calculated. Bracco's Karen Hill was the soul of the film, not because she was moral, but because she was honest. She loved the danger. She made her choices with open eyes. Paul Sorvino as Paulie barely spoke, but every word mattered. He found Paulie by learning to deaden his eyes, to show absolute control through silence. The cast didn't seek Oscar moments, they served the story. Goodfellas premiered in 1990. It made $46 million domestically. Not a blockbuster, but it didn't matter. What mattered was what came after. Filmmakers called the next day asking about techniques, about methods, the fragmented narrative, the use of music, the multi-perspective voiceovers, the anti-hero as protagonist. These became the new language of cinema. The Sopranos, Pulp Fiction, Breaking Bad, The Wolf of Wall Street, all of them carry the DNA of Goodfellas. It redefined what a crime story could be. It's seductive and horrific, glamorous and hollow. It showed a lifestyle's appeal alongside its destruction. Even the real Henry Hill said he couldn't separate his memories from the film. And maybe that's the ultimate legacy of Goodfellas. It didn't just depict reality. It became more real than reality itself. As far back as we can remember, we've been obsessed with Goodfellas, and now you know why. From the book Scorsese almost didn't read, to the improvisation that terrified even the actors, to the very real gangsters who dropped by to ensure their world was shown accurately. This wasn't just a film. It was a lightning strike, and it still crackles with dangerous energy decades later. If this deep dive changed how you see Goodfellas, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. What's your favorite scene? Did you notice something new? We want to hear your take. Stay tuned. We're just getting started. And remember, in cinema as in life, the truth is always more powerful when it makes us uncomfortable.